Welcome back to my channel. I am back with another review, so if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. A lot went down in this episode, so let's just get right into this review. So this episode basically picked up where the last one left off, where Natalie put together yet again another failed house meeting. Natalie, Mariah Lynn, Scotty, Rolly, and Scarface all ended up showing up to the other house for the house meeting, and things went from bad to worse when Mariah Lynn ended up going after Smiley. She went after Smiley because Rolly told her that Smiley said she was going to have Mariah's family followed home from the club after she got into the fight with Mariah's sister. Now listen, I can understand why Mariah was so upset because at the end of the day, she does want her family to be safe, but at the same time, she really does let Smiley get under her skin. And honestly, she doesn't even know if Rolly is telling the truth about saying that Smiley said she was going to have her family followed. I mean, if she did say it, I can understand why. Because Mariah Lynn did say that she brought her whole family to the club for Smiley, so at the end of the day, if she can bring her family to fight Smiley, then why can't Smiley retaliate? Now, I'm not saying that Smiley should retaliate because I honestly think the drama between the two of them is getting old, but at the same time, Mariah Lynn was kind of acting like a little bit of a hypocrite. And what annoyed me even more about this whole situation is that after the beef between Smiley and Mariah Lynn was cut short, that's when Scarface decided that she was going to confront Biggie about the guy at the club that approached her and allegedly hit her on the top of the head. Now, I'm not saying that Scarface was wrong for addressing the situation with Biggie because at the end of the day, no man has a right to get involved in women's business, and I think that guy should have stayed out of it. But at the same time, why is everybody jumping down Biggie's throat and telling her that she should have to go home because she allowed an outsider to put hands on somebody on the show, but they're not saying the same thing about Mariah Lynn? I mean, she brought her whole family, especially her sister, to the club just to fight Smiley. So if Biggie has to go home, why doesn't Mariah? And honestly, I feel like Scarface should be sent home too because she went and touched Biggie's belongings. Like, she went to Biggie's room and started packing her things. If it says in the contract that you're not allowed to touch anybody's stuff, then she should have to go home because they're trying to send Smiley and Biggie home for literally no reason at all. So why doesn't Scarface and Mariah have to go home too? And when Biggie tries to stop Scarface from packing her things, they end up getting into a fight on the top of the staircase, which is not safe at all. They should not be fighting over there. But it only lasted a few seconds because security immediately broke up the fight. And I have to be honest, I do not like the way that Natalie handled this situation. She is supposed to be the executive producer of the show. I don't understand why she sat there and allowed Scarface to touch Biggie's things and didn't say anything about it. And then she sat there and co-signed this eviction paper that Rolly wrote up for Biggie and Smiley and told them that they need to go because everybody else on the show is on the same page except for the two of them. And that's stupid to me. Like, girl, bye. Natalie does this all the time. If you watched her season of the Bad Girls Club, she tried to turn everybody against Flo and it worked, and they all ended up throwing a bunch of water balloons at Flo and kicked her out the house, and then Flo ended up beating her up at the reunion. So I honestly don't understand why Natalie continues to do the same thing she always does, but these girls need to know what they're dealing with when they deal with Natalie. And let me just tell you, some people were saying that they didn't like the way that Smiley was acting in this episode, but honestly, I don't think that she did anything wrong. I mean, what exactly did she do wrong? She didn't want to engage in any more drama because the drama has literally been surrounding her for the last 4 or 5 episodes, so I can understand why she was over it at this point. The person who I had an issue with in this episode was T. And the reason why I'm saying that I had an issue with T in this episode is because she sat there with Rolly, one of the people who ganged up on her a few episodes ago, and was sitting there co-signing everybody giving eviction notices out to Biggie and Rolly, and she was saying that she doesn't support men putting their hands on women, which is true, nobody does, but at the same time, you don't know if Biggie actually got this guy to do anything to her, because I honestly don't believe that Biggie told this guy to do anything to her. Now, some of the girls were saying that Biggie knows this guy, but I don't know if this is the same guy who she was hanging around with. It might be, but if it's not, I think that she probably told him about it, or somebody who knew about the situation between Biggie and Scarface went back and told him, and then he decided to approach Scarface on his own. Now, that doesn't excuse the fact that this guy shouldn't have approached her in the first place, but for everybody to just jump to conclusions and say that Biggie did this isn't right. I'm not saying that T is not entitled to her opinion, but at the same time, sitting there being cozy with the girls who sat there and ganged up on you doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that nobody jumped in to defend her when she had her issue, and I'm not saying that she needed to defend Biggie or Smiley, But she shouldn't be co-signing Rolly, who sat up and did the same thing to her. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, later that night, Sukiana ended up going into the room and having a talk with Smiley and Biggie about the whole situation. And I don't give Sukiana any points for this because she ganged up on Smiley a few episodes ago too, and she didn't have a reason to. But I do think that some of what she was saying to Biggie and Smiley was right. She basically told them not to let anybody kick them out of the house, and she also told Biggie that the girls that she thinks she's cool with aren't really her friends because nobody defended her when she was getting into that situation with Scarface. Now, Biggie claims that the girls that she thinks she's cool with told her that they did try to defend her, but I didn't see that happen. I didn't see anybody defend her. She needs to be there for herself because nobody there likes her or Smiley, so they can't expect for anybody to defend them at all. Now, one thing I can say about the girls that Natalie hangs out with on the show is that they all defend each other, but the girls that are supposed to get along well with each other in the other house never defend each other. They just sit there and watch shit happen and nobody does anything. And despite all the drama that went down in the house, they still end up going to the club later that night. Now, everybody is dressed up except for Biggie. She is wearing a sweatsuit because obviously she wants to fight or she thinks she's gonna have to fight. And let me just say that I did not like the way that Sky and Camila were coming at Biggie and Smiley on the way to the club. I just don't understand why Camila and Sky act like they're so neutral, but then they only come at the girls that everybody else doesn't like. They never say anything to the other girls when they're doing something wrong, but they're quick to say something to Smiley and Biggie. I just don't like that. And when they finally arrive to the club, all the baddies are lined up outside on their way to get inside the club, and Biggie ends up coming out of nowhere like it happened so fast. She gets out of the bus and she hits Scarface right in the face. And everybody, especially Camila, were trying to go after Biggie because they didn't know that it was Biggie. They thought that it was a random fan that tried to attack them, and so that's the reason why everybody was going off. Now, when they did end up finding out that it was Biggie, that's when Rolly started getting pissed off and she starts throwing things at Biggie's face, and she tries to throw a shoe at her. Now listen, normally I would say what Biggie did was a punk move, but in this case I don't think that it was because Scarface really did wrong when she started touching Biggie's belongings. So to me, I really don't think that it's wrong. And then on top of that, she tried to, sneak tea too a few episodes ago. So she can't sit there and do it to somebody else and then when it's done to her, it's considered wrong. And the funniest thing about this whole situation was that they did not even get to go inside the club. Like, they got all dressed up for no reason at all, and they didn't even make any money that night. The owner ended up coming outside and telling them that they had to leave because of all the fighting that went on outside. And so Natalie was pissed off at Biggie because she feels like Biggie was messing with her money. But I did not feel bad for Natalie at all because look, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and you sat there and allowed her things to be touched when it goes against the contract and didn't do anything about it, so now she messed with your money. Oh well. And because of all the fighting ended up causing them not to make any money that night, the next day Natalie decided to put together a pool party because she wanted them to fight things out in a different type of way. She ended up blowing up water balloons so that if anybody gets mad at each other, instead of throwing punches, they can throw water balloons at each other. But we all know that Natalie really does want them to fight. She was just being fake. Because if she didn't want them to fight and she just wanted them to throw water balloons at each other, then why didn't she say anything to Scarface when she was crouched down on the floor waiting for Biggie to arrive so that she can attack her? If she really didn't want them to fight, she would have told Scarface not to do it. So when Biggie and the other girls finally arrive, Scarface is crouched down by the entrance of the backyard and she's waiting for Biggie to walk by so that she can throw water in her face and the two of them can fight. So when Biggie walks by, she is looking around because she's alert. I mean, she's the one that said she wasn't even bringing a bathing suit because she knew she was going to have to fight. And Scarface ended up popping out of nowhere and she threw the water in Biggie's face and the two of them kind of started fighting. They weren't really fighting to me. They were having more of a scuffle. They were trying to get control of each other and it didn't really work out because they ended up getting broken up by security. But it was really stupid that, Scarface did that because honestly, as soon as Biggie walked up, she could have just fought her, to be honest with you. Like, the throwing the water in the face didn't really make any sense to me. Rolly was in the background egging on Scarface to beat up Biggie, and she was calling Biggie fat, which was really annoying to me. Like, if you watch my channel, I don't talk about anybody's body or anybody's looks. I never do in any of my videos. But for Rolly to be overweight and then talk about Biggie for being overweight doesn't make any sense. And Natalie basically sits there and tells Biggie that she deserves it because she cost them money the previous night because of the fighting. And listen, I don't like that Natalie does stuff like this. Like, I honestly think that Natalie could care less about any of the girls on the show, even the ones that be up her ass all the time. She just wants to make money. You gotta know who Natalie is. She's the same person she was on her season of the Bad Girls Club, and she's still the same person now. Honestly, I don't think that she should be a part of the cast anymore because I think she does more harm than good. So those are my thoughts on this week's episode of Baddies East. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button for me. I appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos and hit the notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to my channel. I appreciate you all. And until next time, I will talk to you guys in my next video.